Hey guys, I'm back with Sage, and we've got some crazy news about diesel. He has been following this thing, and he's my guy I go to in the trucking industry because that's what keeps this thing going. How you doing, brother?
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome. Hey, and before we get started, hit that like button and share the video. Pump this thing out. Pop, 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 pop. It really, the difference when I make a killer video about something that's really important, and when people hit the like button, it goes nuts. It really gets out to people because so they can prepare and get ready. So now, just how about just a plain up, straight up question? What's going on with diesel? And what I mean, I know the East Coast is starving for it. And what can you give us a scenario?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, the best way to understand what's going on with diesel is poor logistics and refineries. So it's not the fact that we don't have oil, we don't have refined oil, we don't have refineries. So in our infinite wisdom, not ours, but the government's infinite wisdom, they decided to allow a lot of refineries to shut down on the East Coast, either because of, I think the fires or, things like that, and just not build new refineries. So since 2012, we've gone from 1.6 million barrels refined a day to about 800,000. It's cut about half on the East Coast. Now, here's where the math gets we all learn this, the butterfly effect here, the math. So what we basically did then is we said, look, it's no big deal. We don't need more refineries. We're just going to go ahead and get oil from Russia. And it's cheap oil. It's cheap for them to move around. It's because they have pipelines. They don't pay the same amount of money as us for hourly wages. So we're going to get that oil from Russia and we're going to ship it to the East Coast. And that will be the East Coast oil supply. Okay. No big deal. So you have the Continental Pipeline, which goes from New Jersey down south, but that heads south. That doesn't head north. It heads south. And then they're getting their oil, so we're fine. Well, the problem is when we cut off the oil, we left a gaping hole of oil supply to the East Coast. Okay, so now what that turns into, we now have to logistically move oil from where we have oil to where we don't have oil. Okay, so we have oil down in this, and we need to move it up there. Well, we have two problems. So the first problem is the best way to move oil is by tanker ship, by boat. But we have something called the Jones Act, and the Jones Act makes it where a foreign vessel cannot pick up in the United States and deliver in the United States. It's basically designed to keep American boats that, they have to do that, right? We have the same thing in trucking. A Canadian driver has to go right to the United States and go right back, right? They have to pick up the load and go right back. Same thing in boats. Well, we don't have enough oil tankers in our U.S. fleet to be able to move the amount of oil we need up to the East Coast.
Why is that?
Just because compared to oil to vessels, we don't care. We didn't make a lot of them. Like China.
How did we get in this position? How did this happen?
Basically, not building refineries and pipelines to go. I guess we were confident enough that we would always be able to get oil from Russia. Nobody thought of Russia basically saying, let me turn off your faucet. Right.
Well, that was a really small percentage.
Right. It was a small percentage, but it was a large percentage in regards to where it went. It went to the East Coast. So it was like a small percentage overall, but a huge portion for the East Coast because that's where that oil went. Yeah. So now we have a problem getting the East Coast oil. Right. We have to ship it up there. It costs more, it costs more to rail it. It costs more to truck it. It costs more to move it because we're trying to get it to them. And then as we pull oil out of places to send it up there, it raises the overall price of oil. And I'm sorry, the overall price of diesel because it costs a lot to get it up there. So it's basically turned into a logistical problem on how to get oil to the refineries to have it refined to get back to the gas stations because it's no longer coming. It's like, if you have 5 different hoses coming into, to this one tank, well, if you cut off this one hose, that whole section has been cut off with oil. You know what I mean? That whole, now you have to figure out a way to get that back to that East Coast. So nobody ever thought of, it wasn't a big fact. It wasn't a big percentage of oil, but it was a big percentage of East Coast oil. And that's where it's now trying to feed them oil. We need to get them oil from someplace because we just turned off the East Coast faucet.
Mm-hmm. So this could,
go ahead.
Do you have, it seems like this could get a whole lot worse before it got any better.
Yeah, because what happens now is you're going to have a lot of things kicking off in regards to when fuel oil starts to kick off, when summer driving starts to kick off, and all this other stuff starts to, get kicked in. That logistical, the ability to logistically move oil up to them to be refined to deliver to those locations is going to get harder and harder. Because you have more, you're going to have more traffic, you're going to have more cars. There's going to be more states that we just can't send all the fuel up there because people are also driving in Texas. They're also driving in, Indiana, Ohio. So we are spread thin logistically on means to be able to get them the oil to the East Coast that we turned off. As
Energy
more start driving and summertime comes and campers go out and people are running, generators for their campers and the summertime starts to begin.
The amount of fuel we burn is unreal. It really is mind-boggling when you start to learn about how much diesel's burnt a day.
Yeah, it's a large number. And what we have in what we call strategic reserves, we have strategic reserves and for just, military events or emergencies. And then we have strategic fuel oil, like heating oil reserves and things like that. It's not enough to cover, like the strategic fuel oil reserve is not enough to cover. I think it's like 65% or only 7% of a day. It's not even enough to cover a full day. So it's not like we can just pull from the reserve that's up there. Like the East Coast has a reserve up there that I think Biden was looking into pulling from that reserve rather than trying to find other ways to logistically move other oil. And that even if he pulled all of it, I believe it's only like 70% of a day. So, you're not even covering a full day and you're going to be empty. So they're finding out that logistics is a huge deal. And they're truly finding out how lack of planning they have logistically to handle situations like this.
All right. So I really like to come up with solutions. It's really easy to talk about. And guys, this is for real. We're not saying anything that's not factual.
Correct.
You might not be hearing it on the mainstream media, but this is going to happen. We're going to see the highest diesel prices that anybody's ever dreamed of. I say it all the time, $100 a barrel of oil is going to be a deal in the Thunderdome. That is going to be, under that is gone. I don't know if we'll ever see it again, but who knows? I never thought oil would go negative either. But so what can we do to get ready? I'll go and tell you what I do. I try to keep 500 gallons of diesel, a tank above ground. It will last forever. You can drain the water off of it if it's above ground, and it just red diesel. It sits out there ready to go for my generators or my tractors or whatever else. If it hits the fan, you can put it in your truck, I'm pretty sure. But I don't recommend that. The fine's pretty bad. But what else can we do? How can we brace for impact? How is this going to affect trucks and truckers? And what the hell are we going to do? I'm serious.
It's a very difficult situation because even if the price of oil goes down, your price of your diesel fuel and gas might not, because we have a shortage of refine and logistically moving it. So it's not the fact that we don't have oil. It's almost also the fact that we can't refine it. So even if you're watching the price of oil, understand diesel might not come down because you have to refine that oil, right? And that's what our main thing is. So it's going to be one of those, it's a very difficult situation. Besides filling up that tank or getting something, which some people might not be able to put because they're living in the city, it's going to be stuff that I would focus on fuel oil first. Fill your fuel. If you're heating oil, if you're dealing with heating oil for your stove, for your, heating your house, I would focus on that first. And then make sure those tanks are topped off. Even if you have to have them come in 100 gallons or $100 a week or something, I do that first because that's full and you should be good to go, hopefully. And, at least that. After that, it's going to be drive as much as you have to drive as that price goes up, because it's going to be very difficult to use. And then unfortunately, as a single person, without all you could do is buy a tank and store it, like you said, because there's really no other changes you can do besides not drive and try to drive as limited as possible.
Well, and you said heating oil, and we've talked about this before. Get a wood burning stove. And remember, me and Sage said, get a wood burning stove, because there's going to be a lot of cold people when the heating oil is ridiculous. That they can't afford it because their food prices are 50% higher than what they are now. Just think about that. Your disposable income is going to food, and you weren't planning on a super cold winter with extremely high heating oil prices. So get a wood burner stove. You can find wood normally in most places, unless you live in the desert or Texas or something.
Right.
So that's one thing. And you can stick it on a shelf. You can get a pellet stove. They're a little harder to find. The pellets are kind of hard to find, but that's another thing we can do. But as far as the diesel and storing it at your house, that really does little, because this is a logistics supply of goods that are going to stop. Because if the trucks aren't moving, we're in big trouble. And I'm talking the East Coast is going to be in trouble in about 12 days, if I got that right.
Yeah, it's definitely something that they're needing to look at quite quickly, because, like I said, we cannot get them what they need as fast as they need it. It's different when it comes, like I said, coming over from Russia on huge vessels to hold it was easier. We only have so much rail. We only have so many certain size trucks, and even our vessels are moving oil from other things. So they just can't pull off what they're doing to only go to the East Coast. So it is a logistical problem, and logistical problems, they work their ways out over time. There's no quick fix for a logistical problem. So they start slow, they ramp up. And if you wait to the top, to the point of ramping up, it takes a long time to slow down, as we're learning from the vid, how long that's taken to get back. And it's still not fixed. Right. So it is not going to be a quick fix. There is no quick fix for this.
No doubt. Well, Sage, thank you for coming on, and thanks everybody for watching to the end of the video. Just brace for impact, guys. Get ready. We are getting into the Thunderdome, and it's going to be as bad as I hate to say it. We're going to live in interesting times. The next 10 years is going to look nothing like the last.
Absolutely.
Later, brother.
Thanks for having me.